A vital artery of North America has been severed. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of unity, is now a dead end. On July 15, 2025, Canada closed its portion of the highway to non-essential U.S. traffic, isolating Alaska from the rest of the United States by land. The decision triggered a diplomatic crisis, stranding thousands and disrupting commerce. For Alaskans, this road is their main link to the lower 48, essential for goods, travel, and livelihoods. Now, that connection is gone. Political leaders in Washington and Ottawa are scrambling as the shutdown threatens decades of partnership. The world is watching. How will two of the closest allies resolve such a dramatic rift? The crisis exposes a unique vulnerability: Alaska's reliance on a foreign nation for land access. Trust, once the foundation of this relationship, is now in question. As trucks idle and travelers are turned away, the future of U.S.-Canada relations hangs in the balance. This is more than a road closure. It's a test of sovereignty, security, and what it means to be good neighbors. The stakes could not be higher for the people and leaders caught in this unprecedented shutdown. To grasp today's crisis, we must revisit the highway's origins. Built during World War II, the Alaska Highway was a joint U.S.-Canada effort to defend North America after Pearl Harbor. In just 8 months, over 10,000 U.S. soldiers and thousands of civilians carved a rugged path through wilderness, connecting Dawson Creek, BC, to Delta Junction, Alaska. After the war, Canada took over its section, gradually improving and opening it to the public. The highway became a lifeline for commerce and adventure, fueling Alaska's growth and linking remote communities. For decades, it's been more than a road. It's a symbol of peaceful borders and shared prosperity. Towns in the Yukon and northern BC grew up alongside it, their economies tied to the steady flow of American travelers and goods. The highway cemented economic integration, making Alaska feel less remote. This long history of cooperation makes the current closure all the more shocking. The sudden disruption isn't just logistical, it's a blow to the very fabric of the region. The Alaska Highway's legacy is one of unity. Its closure, a stark reminder of how quickly that unity can unravel. The road that once brought nations together now divides them. The shutdown began with a trade dispute. On July 1, 2025, the U.S. imposed steep tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber. Canada, led by Prime Minister Trudeau, condemned the move and warned of retaliation. Few expected the response. On July 15, Canada closed its portion of the Alaska Highway to U.S. traffic, citing economic sovereignty. Checkpoints sprang up overnight, turning away U.S. truckers and tourists without warning. The closure, framed as temporary, created chaos and confusion on both sides of the border. Trudeau defended the action as necessary to protect Canadian workers, blaming U.S. tariffs for forcing his hand. Critics called it a dangerous escalation, weaponizing shared infrastructure and risking long-term damage to U.S.-Canada relations. The highway, once a symbol of partnership, became a pawn in a high-stakes trade war. The U.S. response was immediate and fierce. Former President Trump, still a dominant political voice, blasted Canada on social media, accusing Trudeau of holding Alaska hostage. His calls for border shutdowns and retaliatory tariffs fueled partisan outrage in Washington. Republican lawmakers echoed his rhetoric, framing Canada's move as economic aggression and blaming the White House for weakness. The White House, in turn, condemned the closure as unwarranted and harmful, vowing to restore access for Alaskans. The U.S. ambassador to Canada was recalled for emergency talks. The crisis quickly became a political flashpoint, exposing deep cracks in the U.S.-Canada partnership. Public posturing on both sides has made compromise difficult. Diplomats are working behind the scenes, but the highway now stands as a symbol of a fractured relationship. What was once a model of cooperation is now a battleground for national pride and political power. The economic shock was immediate. Alaska's supply chain relies on the highway for over 30% of its consumer goods: fresh produce, building materials, and more. With the road cut off, supermarket shelves in Anchorage and Fairbanks are emptying, and prices are spiking as air freight replaces trucks. Construction projects are halting, and small businesses brace for losses as supplies and tourists vanish. The impact ripples beyond Alaska. The port of Anchorage is bottlenecked, and trucking companies in Washington and Alberta are paralyzed. A Seattle logistics firm reports millions in weekly losses as trucks sit idle. The Yukon's tourism sector, dependent on American travelers, faces a devastating summer. The Alaska Department of Commerce estimates the closure could cost the state $50 million per week. A political decision in Ottawa has triggered a cascade of financial pain across borders. The region's deep interdependence is now its greatest vulnerability. Beyond economics, the closure's human toll is profound. Families like the Millers from Texas planning a dream RV trip are stranded at the border, their vacation ruined. Alaskans feel isolated, cut off from family, medical care, and essential travel. Military families face logistical nightmares, with household goods stuck and transfers delayed. Canadian communities along the highway, like Watson Lake and Fort Nelson, are reeling as motels and restaurants sit empty. Americans are our main customers, says a Watson Lake motel owner. Without them, we're facing devastating losses. The crisis has upended lives: truckers out of work, students unable to drive to school, retirees trapped on the wrong side of the border. Ordinary people are caught in a geopolitical crossfire, their plans and livelihoods shattered. The closure is a stark reminder: diplomatic disputes have real, personal consequences. It's not just about dollars, it's about disrupted lives and broken dreams. The highway, once a lifeline, now stands as a barrier. The human stories behind the headlines are a powerful call for resolution. The cost of inaction grows with every passing day. Experts see this as a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess. Canada's move was calculated, leveraging Alaska's isolation to force U.S. negotiations on tariffs. But some warn it could backfire, fueling a broader trade war and harming Canada more than the original tariffs. The legal status of the highway is murky. No treaty guarantees permanent civilian access, giving Canada leverage, but also fueling U.S. outrage. The U.S. is applying political and economic pressure, not legal action, as both sides dig in. Neither wants to appear weak. The U.S. resists economic blackmail, while Canada seeks concessions on tariffs. The result is diplomatic deadlock. Experts say a quick resolution is unlikely. The key will be a face-saving compromise, perhaps with a third-party mediator or a broader trade deal. Until then, the highway remains closed, a potent symbol of a relationship in crisis. The longer the standoff, the deeper the damage to trust and cooperation. The world is watching for a breakthrough. The stakes extend far beyond a single road. With the highway closed, the urgent question is, what next? The U.S. is scrambling to support Alaska, subsidizing air and sea freight and boosting ferry services, costly, temporary fixes. Behind the scenes, diplomats are searching for an off-ramp. The likeliest solution: the U.S. signals willingness to review tariffs, and Canada reopens the highway as a gesture of goodwill. Both sides could claim victory without admitting defeat. Some propose long-term fixes: a rail link connecting Alaska to the North American network, or expanding the Alaska Marine Highway with state-run ferries. These are massive projects, years from completion. The crisis has exposed Alaska's vulnerability and forced a reckoning. The immediate priority: reopen the highway and restore normalcy. The larger challenge: rebuild trust and prevent future crises. The Alaska highway closure is more than a logistical crisis. It's a fracture in the North American partnership. A once open border is now a hard wall, dividing neighbors and disrupting lives. The world's longest undefended border, a symbol of peace and prosperity, is now tarnished. The crisis is a warning. Our interconnectedness brings both strength and vulnerability. The only solution is renewed dialogue and leadership. Retaliation will only deepen the wounds. Leaders must look beyond short-term politics and focus on repairing the relationship. The challenge is not just to reopen a road, but to rebuild trust. The Alaska Highway was built in crisis to defend a continent. Now, the crisis is on the highway itself. The urgent task is to restore the spirit of cooperation that built it. For the sake of travelers, businesses, and the future of North America, the road must be reopened. The lifeline must be restored.